Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a great start to your day, and a great start to your weekend. Thank you all for taking time out your morning to hear about the weather. We're going to give you some update information on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Saturday. We'll talk about a flooding potential, a severe weather risk, and today being day one of this winter storm that's going to impact many people from the south central U.S. all the way to the northeast, all the way up to sections of like Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. So we'll give you updates on all these areas. I do want to quickly mention here, once we get to that south central timestamp that you guys are used to in these morning videos, you know, for folks who live in like Texas, Oklahoma, surrounding states, we'll kind of give you a full extension of this winter storm update in that timestamp region of the video. So if you're kind of looking for that central U.S. winter storm timestamp that you're kind of used to when we're breaking down a winter storm, it won't be there. It's all going to be grouped up into the south central timestamp. So take advantage of that. Definitely just take advantage of the timestamps in general. They're there to help you folks. To take an extra 5 to 10 minutes to put them there so you guys can skip ahead to the portion of the video that you want to listen to. And then we'll have a separate segment for the Northeast. We're going to get very detailed with you folks, compare model guidance, and talk about what the latest just outlook is for this winter storm coming up early next week. We'll talk a little bit on the severe weather potential coming up over the next couple days. Sunday and Monday could be pretty active also. And we'll give you a little bit of information on that time frame I've been watching, but I really just want the details to iron itself out for that time frame. That things are just everywhere. It's a tough period to figure out, and we just need things to kind of just figure itself out as we get a little bit closer. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, you know the deal. Please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So we got a lot of rain across the south central U.S., going across the Mississippi Valley, all the way into the mid-south Ohio River Valley. Just a slug of rain. It's heavy in areas, you know, even got some rumbles of thunder. And sort of the beginning stages of this winter storm starting to crank up across areas of the high plains, southern high plains, and the south central U.S. A lot of this isn't hitting the ground yet, especially in the panhandle of Texas. It could be. You guys have to let me know. But I think that really the meat of this system cranks up here in the next 12 hours or so. A little bit of snow flying around up here in the upper Midwest. And I do think we'll get a little accumulating snow here in the later portion of today's time period. A little bit later this weekend is really what I'm trying to say. So you guys haven't really seen anything up here over the last few weeks. Could get a little bit more snow on the ground up here, which you should have on February 10th, but you don't really have anything up here. But it's too warm for snow or for anything wintry, even right now in like the Northeast. In fact, we'll talk about this. Like New York State could see some thunderstorms today. Pretty wild. Speaking of thunderstorms and Storm Prediction Center, there is a slight risk for severe weather. It's a level 2 out of 5 down here in the heart of Texas and points south. Austin, San Antonio, San Angelo, south of Abilene have a slight risk. A marginal risk, level 1 out of 5, extends from western Texas all the way to central and northern Louisiana. But I mean, check it out. You got a risk of thunderstorms up here in the Northeast today. It's pretty wild. And I'll show you. I really think it's going to happen too. Tornado threat, just a 2% risk, but please do not ignore the fact that it's only a 2% risk. Don't ignore it, guys. I'm telling you, the storms have been overproducing over the last couple of days. It seems like, I made a joke on social media, it seems like every storm in 2024 so far has been rotating. So there is a 2% risk of a tornado. It could uptrend here on the latest outlook. In fact, let's see if there is another update here, and there's not. But the wind threat, just a 5% risk, but the hail threat is the biggest threat with this. It's really what's driving this severe weather threat. As we get into tonight, not only do we have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, in the black outline region, guys, we also have a hatch risk, which means there's a chance for larger hail. There's a 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inches in diameter or larger in this area. So there's a significant risk of large hail down here. We'll talk about why when we get to this area of the country. So as far as flash flooding, there is a slight risk, and this is kind of ongoing right now. There's a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles at any given point in this yellow area. So please take any kind of flooding situation serious today. Watches, warnings, and advisories, and really it's centered around this area right here. There's winter storm warnings now up for areas of the panhandle of Texas. One county in Oklahoma, winter storm watches are still up for western sections of Oklahoma. And I think these teal color counties down here where you have winter storm watches kind of between Amarillo and Lubbock, these will get upgraded to warnings probably sometime today for sure. And you got some winter weather advisories extending all the way up to Wyoming, Nebraska. We'll talk a little bit about these areas up here. and winter storm warnings up for southern and southeast sections of Colorado and New Mexico. So the rest of the country quiet, but we'll start to see winter storm watches issued probably, I would say, more so into tomorrow for areas, maybe tonight for areas of the Northeast, Pennsylvania, and places like that. The Southeast today, starting off this morning, we got this area of rain that will slowly kind of drift eastward, but more so move southwest to northeast. A little bit of shower activity is possible in southern Alabama, the panhandle of Florida today. But we'll continue just to have a very soggy day from like North Texas, southeast Oklahoma, through Arkansas, through northern Louisiana, northern Mississippi, extreme northern sections of Alabama, through the heart of Tennessee, all the way to the southern Alps region. As we start to get into this evening, I mean, it's just going to continue. You're going to pick up a good bit of rain in this area right in here. You know, this is like later this evening, could begin to see some thunderstorms in northern Louisiana areas, kind of around the Mississippi Delta region. And then as we're waking up for our Sunday morning, we could have a thin line of thunderstorms making its way through Alabama, North Georgia, and just waking up to some moderate to heavy rain across the southern Alps region, and just steady rain up here in Virginia that you're waking up to for your Sunday morning. So how much rain between now and Sunday morning? Well, this stripe of 1 to 3 inches of rain is expected, and this is already falling right now. But I mean, Shreveport, Monroe, 1 to 3 inches of rain. You go up to Jackson, maybe an inch, inch and a half. Memphis, kind of the same thing. You know, Oxford, you guys going to get a good bit of rain. Nashville, 1 to 2, maybe 2.5 inches of rain. Yeah, the Cumberland Plateau is going to get hit pretty good. But, you know, this rain doesn't really start to move into areas of the southeast until we get into our Sunday. So that's why you're not seeing much at all for this area of Georgia and the Carolinas and Florida. Most of this is going to be in this area right in here today. The Northeast, man, a weird day of weather. Considering the fact that you got a winter storm on the heels of this. As we are getting into midday, look at these thunderstorms in areas of like northern PA. I mean, look around the Finger Lakes region. Look at these thunderstorms in central New York State, February 10th. I mean, these look like some pretty gnarly thunderstorms. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if these produce a lot of hail. You know, when you get thunderstorms this far north in this time of the year, even though you're too warm at the surface for this to obviously be snow, there's still a lot of cold air aloft in these areas. So don't be surprised one bit if you live around the Finger Lakes region, southern sections of New York, central New York, Binghamton, Albany. I mean, you guys get a hailstorm today. I mean, I would not be surprised one bit at all with this. And these kind of areas of kind of heavy rain and even thunderstorms could drift into southern New England. It's pretty wild. You know, these areas of the country could see several inches of snow. I'm sorry, this area of the Northeast could see several inches of snow here in a few days. We're going to get thunderstorms today, potentially. So then we get into the overnight hours, a little bit more colder air could work in. So the same areas that see maybe a hailstorm around the Finger Lakes region this afternoon could potentially see some snow flurries flying around at daybreak tomorrow morning. So it's pretty wild weather, guys. Wild stuff for sure. South Central U.S., this is when, you know, this is where we'll spend a little bit of extra time on waking up to that rain in Texas. And as we are getting, we're going to talk a little bit more on this severe weather portion here in a second. So bear with me. But let's kind of break down just what it looks like as far as the HRRR model, more of a broad look. Snow flying around in Colorado, very scattered about. Snow flying around in New Mexico. You know, we get into this evening, you're thinking in the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, you know, what snow? But then, you know, if you kind of go up to your neighbors in kind of southeast Colorado, it's snowing pretty good. But then as we make our way, nose is itching like crazy, I'm sorry. But then as we make our way into Saturday night, this is when the snow begins to move in. So at the same time, check this out. You got hailstorms down here in south central sections of Texas. And then you got snow flying around in Amarillo. Okay, this is pretty wild. Some dynamic weather expected in Texas today for sure. Snow beginning, tonight really. You know, snow getting into southwest sections of Kansas tonight. We'll take it all the way into our Sunday morning. Look at this heavy snow flying. This is going to be some heavy snow. I would not be surprised one bit. Somewhere around Lubbock, points north, you get thunder snow tomorrow. Late tonight into tomorrow morning. I would not be surprised we get some thunder snow into this area. One bit. Don't let it catch you by surprise. But you start to get into our Sunday. There's the snow trying to fly around here in western Oklahoma. And then we get to about midday Sunday tomorrow. It's still snowing like crazy out here in the panhandle, the southern kind of panhandle region of Texas, I would say like a region between Amarillo and Lubbock is going to get hit hard. Someone might squeeze in 8 to 12 inches of snow in an area between Amarillo and Lubbock. But look at this heavy snow flying in this region, and then we take it all the way. Are you going to switch to a period of snow in Oklahoma City? That's a big question. It's a tough forecast for Oklahoma City. As we get into our Sunday, there's the potential for it, and then we start to get into our Sunday night, and then we get into the middle of the night, Sunday night, and the Monday morning. This is around like 1 a.m. or so Monday morning. Okay, about midnight Sunday night. Look at this area of snow flying around here in central Oklahoma. I mean, look at the snow getting very, very close to the Dallas area. Northern Texas, you got snow flying around these areas. Southwest sections of Missouri, northwest sections of Arkansas, starting to see a little snow. And we look at the extension of this. And let's see if we got some updated information here. Yep, this is the latest 060 Euro. And we'll kind of go out into this range. And all we can do is look really at the global models. But it kind of shows the idea of maybe some heavy wet snow here in central Oklahoma. But it's kind of struggling. I think it's fair to look at the mesoscale models. But there is a favored area once this gets into northwest Arkansas and then central sections and more so south central sections of Missouri. I think Springfield could be a jackpot area. And I'll kind of show you a zoomed in kind of area of how much snow they're expecting in Springfield, Missouri, for example. But and y'all didn't tell me I had a cowlick going on with my hair right there. But anyways, Springfield could get some heavy wet snow from this. And we're getting into Monday midday. Heavy snow flying around potentially in areas of southern Missouri. And then, it's going to get close to St. Louis. I don't think this is going to be a big event by any means. I think if anything, you get some light snowfall accumulations in St. Louis, but that could change. I have to watch for updates for this area. So if you kind of round this off, I think obviously this is going to be the jackpot area right in here. And then there could be a surprise in central Oklahoma. And then I think that you're going to have another sort of favored area for accumulating snow Monday morning in areas of maybe extreme northeast sections of Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, south central Missouri, and then this heads on off to the east. So that's the update on the winter weather side of this. If we kind of look at the snowfall expected from this, and that's an update from the winter weather as far as the evolution of the storm. But if you look at snowfall accumulations from this, kind of a broad look from the National Weather Service that goes all the way out to Tuesday morning. And look at these highlight areas. Guys, that's like 8 to 12 inches of snow forecast south of Amarillo. Of course, the higher elevations of New Mexico and the southern ranges of Colorado is going to get hit by several inches of snow. But look at this pocket up here of heavier snow in like Nebraska. And then it shows kind of what I mentioned, right? Favorite area. And then look at this little corridor right in here of some heavy snow that is possible. I mean, it even has an area of like 6 inches of snow right here in southern sections of Missouri. Is that going to happen? It's a big question. But it really just kind of skips right over Oklahoma, and I think it's the time of the day. I think the meat of this happens overnight into the morning period. This happens into the daytime period where it's warmer, and then this happens in kind of the overnight area into the daytime period of the day. So if we kind of zoom into some of these areas, this is the National Weather Service out of Wyoming, I think Cheyenne, 2 to 6 inches of snow expected in Cheyenne. And then we get into sections of Nebraska, Bridgeport, 4 to 7 inches, Kimball, 4 to 8 inches, Sydney, 4 to 8 inches of snow. Scottsbluff could get an inch, could get 5. Alliance, 2 to 6. Cheyenne, 2 to 6 inches of snow. Not a whole lot once you get a little bit further north in Wyoming. You head on down the road to Colorado, 2 to 3 inches of snow in Denver expected still, 4 to 6 in Castle Rock, Fort Morgan, 2 to 3, Sterling, 2 to 3. Just kind of look where you are on your screen. Carville, 4 to 6 inches of snow. And if I'm going too fast, guys, just pause it. There's no point in like mentioning every single town on here. I think that would be a little bit in the way of some overkill. Rye, 7 to 13 inches of snow. It's a very wide range. And Kim, 4 to 7. Springfield, 3 to 6. Trinidad, a 7 to 10. Colorado Springs, 4 to 7 on this map. So, just check out where you are on this map. And then we go down to New Mexico. This is what you're expecting in New Mexico. Santa Fe, 4 inches of snow. Las Vegas, New Mexico, not Nevada, 8 to 12. Roy, 6 to 8. Clayton, 6 to 8. Clovis could get 3 to 4 inches of snow. Okay. And then we go over to Kansas, Dodge City, maybe nothing, maybe an inch. Garden City, a trace to 2 inches. Syracuse, 1 to 3. Liberal, a trace to 2 inches of snow. So they're not calling for much in this area. This could increase, though. And then we start to get to the meat of this system. Boise City, Oklahoma, I believe, 6 inches, but a Guyman only 1.5 inches. So that's a big difference, right? Stratford, 3.5 inches. Amarillo going for 4 to 5 inches of now. So I think that's increased a little bit since the last update. And all these updates were from, this morning. So this is kind of the newest and updated information. You get a little bit further south. This is when we start to get into the meat of this system. Silverton, 8 to 12 inches of snow. Plainview, 8 to 12 inches. Lubbock, remember last night I was talking about an inch. Now they're calling for 3 to 4. So a little bit exciting times. It's always nice if you're a winter weather fan when the chances, 24 hours before the storm hits of snow increases. Childress, 4 to 6. Not going to try to pronounce that one, but 2 to 3 inches in Spur. So even Brownfield, 1 to 2 inches down here. Morton, 3 to 4. We go over to Oklahoma. Altus, 1 to 2 inches of snow. Woodward, it was looking like you guys could get a little bit more snow a day or so ago, but this could change. Oklahoma City, it was 1 to 2. Now it's just an inch or less, but this could change. This is a huge question mark area right here. I could see someone squeezing in 3 to 4 inches of snow when you're calling for nothing. It just depends on what kind of deformation band sets up, what kind of dynamic cooling action you get. There has been some increase out of the Tulsa region, calling for about 1/2 inch of snow now. Fayetteville, they're going for about 1 inch now. So, and then you go up to my neighbors up here and Missouri. 1 to 4 inches now is possible in Springfield, Missouri. You go a little bit up Interstate 44, a little bit more. Ava, 2 to 4 inches of snow expected. Joplin, a nothing to maybe 1 inch. So this is another favored area right in here that we need to watch out for. So I don't want to skip the severe weather potential for this area because I kind of jumped right over it. But listen, tonight, there's going to be a chance of thunderstorms today. You got to watch out for these storms right in here in the heart of Texas. But I really think as we get into tonight, look at these individual cells. This is about 11 p.m. tonight, getting close to midnight. Look, it's snowing like crazy in the panhandle of Texas, but you got hailstorms down here. San Angelo right here, just east. Look at these individual supercells. I'm telling you, these are going to produce a lot of hail. We're probably going to get some wild video out of the heart of Texas tonight from these hailstorms. I think we are. But that is why there is a significant threat of hail in this area. It's really for what happens tonight. Please have a way to protect your cars tonight. I know not everybody has a carport or a garage. I get it. But if there's a way you can protect your cars down here tonight, I really would. And this section of Texas right into here. And then as we start to get into our Sunday morning, this will grow upscale, and we could have a threat of hail even as we get into our Sunday morning. And then these storms are starting to get close to Louisiana and southwestern sections of Arkansas. So please be careful in this area of Texas tonight with these hailstorms that get going. If you get all the way into, look at this. This is pretty wild. This is how dynamic the weather can be in Texas, really any state. Hailstorms going on right here, getting up to daybreak, and then a heavy hitting winter storm up here in like Lubbock to Amarillo. So pretty wild stuff, guys. We've already talked about all that. We head on up to our neighbors up here in the south central U.S. where the weather has been awfully quiet lately. Going to get some snow that breaks out across western Nebraska later today. I don't expect it to get very far east in Nebraska. Could get some snow flurries flying around in the state of Minnesota. I don't think they're really going to add up to much at all. But as we are starting to get into our Sunday, I will extend this into our Sunday for the UP of Michigan. Could start to get some lake-enhanced snow that flies around. Could dump a couple inches of snow. As you can tell, this is getting into tomorrow afternoon. Look at these it's going to go get back to winter, a winter kind of vibe up here. Some snow showers will start to fly around up here. Some colder air spilling over these Great Lakes. So we kind of get back to more of a wintry look. So snowfall expected up here between now and Monday morning. If you're kind of hugged up against Lake Superior in the eastern UP of Michigan, a few inches of snow is possible. So you guys will have to let me know what you see from this event up here. Out west, quieter times. Very, very quiet. Not a whole lot going on. We do have that moisture here falling in the form of some snow in the higher elevations of Arizona, right down here in southeast Arizona. So pretty wild stuff. Let me know what you're actually seeing down there. But as we get into this afternoon, this evening, a quiet period across the west, some rain will start to move back into the Pacific Northwest, as you can tell. But definitely not any kind of, nothing in the way of any kind of substantial storm system. Temperatures, man, it is going to be a nice day where it's not raining across the southeast. For example, in my neck of the woods, it's going to get into the low 70s, and we're going to kind of avoid the rain today. So I'm going to get out and get some things done, enjoy the day, but it's going to be a pretty nice day temperature-wise. It is, but, this is probably going to kickstart the pollen. Probably going to confuse the trees like it does every year, but definitely warmer temperatures across the southeast. And, it's pretty wild. Today, temperatures won't be that cold in the panhandle of Texas. We're expecting the winter storm that moves in tonight, but, things will change dramatically. But look how warm it is in the northeast ahead. This is temperatures well above average ahead of this winter storm here in the next few days in the northeast that we're about to talk about. The western U.S., it's certainly a little bit cooler, but you're starting to warm up in California. But yeah, stay tuned to your local people for the temperatures out here. But it's going to be a cooler day out west for sure, especially in the Rockies and even in the lower elevations. Speaking of the update on this storm system for the Northeast, okay, this is the latest GFS. We're going to start where we kind of left off, which is around Monday evening. I don't want to leave my folks in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio out, okay? You do have a chance, and let's back this up a little bit. As we're starting to get into our Monday evening, there is going to be a chance of some accumulating snow, but it's going to be very narrow. It's going to be tough to figure out. But the GFS does have an area of accumulating snow south of St. Louis into southern sections of Illinois. Eventually, it does get into southern Indiana, and the GFS says, hey, an area of snow is possible anywhere from southern to central Ohio. Does get rain switching to snow in western and northern sections of Kentucky. Look at that 994 low going right over West Virginia. And then this is when it really cranks up for the Northeast. We'll go all the way to Tuesday morning. Look at this heavy snow. And rain does switch to snow in like West Virginia. All the way down to like the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, potentially in Virginia. And look at this comet head of snow Tuesday morning all the way down into northern Kentucky. We got to see if that actually happens. But as we kind of zoom into this, look how dark those blues are. That is heavy, heavy, wet snow. Snowing at like 29, 30, 31 degrees. Like snowflakes the size of $50 flying around this area. You keep this going, and substantial winter storm kind of moves into southern New England, southern sections of New York State. Snowing like crazy in Scranton. It's trying to get some snow all the way down here like Harrisburg. I think you're going to struggle once you get into the Delmarva, especially the Delmarva. Northern Maryland might get a little bit lucky, especially western Maryland when you're in those higher elevations. 984 millibar low, and it is snowing very heavily. The question mark is, how much are you going to mix in like New York City, Long Island, and just hugged up against the southern flank of the southern New England, like the coastal regions of Connecticut, Rhode Island, southeast Mass. But it does look like as we get into Tuesday midday, the 13th, this is the time frame we're at, that is some very heavy snow flying around in Boston and surrounding regions. And then as we start to get into Tuesday afternoon, it looks like you kind of get rid of the mixing issues, and you kind of end this storm Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening is some very heavy snow. It just depends on where you are. There is a sharp cutoff. Where is this cutoff going to be? In like deeper further north in New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. But it does show a quick hitting heavy snowfall for southern New England. It's just trying to figure out New York City and places like that. Are you going to mix? Are you going to be all rain, all snow? Or are you going to be kind of bouncing back in between both? It's a tough one to figure out. Now, if we look at the European, which this is the latest 06Z, which is only going to go out 90 hours. Same thing, guys. You're going to have a chance in southern sections of Illinois, Indiana. I think your chance will come Monday evening, Monday night. And then as we're getting into late Monday night, into the overnight hours, you're going to have a chance to have some snow, sort of in like maybe the Louisville area, Cincinnati, maybe down to Lexington, Kentucky. And this could overproduce. We got to get into these short-range models. So if you live in southern Indiana, I don't know if this is going to get as far north as like Indianapolis. You got to watch this area right in here. But this is the European. We're getting into Ohio. It shows more snow for southern Ohio, with the GFS had mixing issues. But you got to watch this little feature right here. In Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, it could be tricky. These could be tricky features. But, as we're getting into our Tuesday morning, it's a little bit slower with this storm. 985 millibar low getting out into the North Atlantic. Look at the little bit of snow all the way down to the Cumberland Plateau, the mountains of North Carolina. And, I mean, you have a snow event ongoing right here. And southern Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky. And to keep this going, we'll go on and switch it to the northeast at this point. And it is a very narrow, I mean, I know that point A to point B right here isn't very narrow, but I don't think that this low is going to ride up the coastline like a nor'easter. I think it's going to scoot in and scoot out. So I don't think this is going to be this long duration event. This is kind of mid-morning, Tuesday morning, snowing like crazy in New York City. So if, you know, it kind of moves into New York City, for example, maybe starts out some rain and it switches to snow. But how much more northward trends are we going to get over the next 24 to 48 hours? It's a big question. Heavy snow falling in Pennsylvania. And you take this all the way to midday Tuesday, and it really hits you guys hard in New York City, points north into Connecticut, the Berkshires, Poconos, with just a huge band of heavy snow. Look at these dark blues. 978 millibar low. And then we can only go out to about right here, which is Tuesday afternoon, and it's just slamming southern New England. And it's hitting areas like southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire pretty good too. And we'll have to kind of jump back to the OOZ here. All right. And it kind of misses most of Maine. Gives you some accumulating snow in the coastal regions of Maine, but then it heads on out. Okay. What about snowfall? Well, the National Weather Service is already throwing you folks a bone here in Ohio. Already calling for 1 to 3 inches of snow in central Ohio and even a little bit of snow forecast for northern Kentucky, but not much in southern Indiana and southern Illinois. So, but they are already calling for a little bit of snow in these areas. But, you know, guys, I can show you the European for these areas, but this is going to be overdone. I really do think it is. I think this is overdone in these regions. But, you know, it does show the idea of you could get a surprise in this area. I think just look at this and just look at this as if, hey, this is the area that's favored for accumulating snow. And the GFS and the Euro matches up with that. Don't look as so much at the snowfall accumulations from this, because if this was right, you know, it would dump 9 inches of snow on Dayton. Cincinnati would get several inches of snow, you know, Columbus. Yeah, so, you know, don't focus too much on the snowfall accumulations on the GFS and the Euro. I would more so focus on the National Weather Service, but just kind of focus in on it as in getting an idea where the accumulating snow is going to be. And then we look at the National Weather Service forecast, see if we got an updated one and we do not. Let's see, for up here in the Northeast, and already, this is only getting out the Tuesday morning, but they're already calling for several inches of snow in central and northern PA, getting in the southern tier of New York, and just north of New York City, already calling for a few inches of snow. And this already is calling for a little bit of snow in southern New England. But remember, this only goes out to Tuesday morning. This is the beginning stages of the storm. Already calling for 4 inches of snow in western Maryland. So just really the beginning of the intense portion of this storm, I really do think. But you look at the, excuse me, losing my voice, long video. You look at the GFS as far as snowfall totals, probably a little overdone, but I do like a swath of 6 to 12 inches of snow from Pennsylvania, southern New York, the Poconos, the Catskills, northern New Jersey, into southern New England. I like the idea of a swath of 6 to 12 inches of snow somewhere in these areas. Southern New England. What about New York City? I think Boston, you're sitting pretty good in Boston for a good 6 to 12 inch snowfall event. Might get on the higher end of that 6 inches, lower end of 12 inches. So maybe kind of narrow it down to 6 to 8 inches of snow. I'm not sure. New York City is a big question mark. Long Island, big question mark here. Are you going to get like an inch or two of slushy, wet snow, or are you going to try to sneak in 6 inches of snow? It's a question mark here in this area. I think Scranton, you got a good chance of some decent snow. You know, how far north, if you're watching this from Binghamton or, you know, the Adirondacks, Tuck Plateau, even Buffalo, how far north is this going to trend? It's a big question. And then you look at the European, and we can go out all the way to 90 hours, which is still snowing. And just through Tuesday evening, I mean, New York City on this picks up several inches of snow on the latest 06Z Euro. But it shows the same general idea, right? And if you kind of just go back and look at the OOZ run, and yeah, I mean, jumps about 8 to 9 inches on Boston, half a foot on New York City, And it shows that narrow corridor of heavy snow into this region. So last thing we'll look at for the Northeast, is this is the European ensemble, chances to see 6 inches of snow or more. And maybe there's a new one up. Yeah. So chances to see 6 inches of snow or more in this area. In this region right here, in the yellow, kind of right here, that is a 50 to 60% chance to see 6 inches of snow or more. I mean, and we have basically a 50-50 shot on Long Island to see 6 inches of snow. And it really likes the idea of it of a higher chance being just south of Boston. But, guys, chances to see 12 inches of snow, pretty low. But I think someone is likely going to somehow sneak in a foot of snow somewhere with this setup. So, my folks up here in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Cape Breton Island, what is it? Prince Edward Island right in here. What is the latest model showing? Remember, the Euro was kind of worrisome. The Euro has ticked a little bit further south, but it's still, as we're getting into Tuesday evening, still hit you guys in Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island, even get some snow up to Prince Edward Island with a snowstorm. And then it gets into Newfoundland, Wednesday morning, and dumps heavy snow on you guys. And then it tries to kind of turn it back around and redump more snow as low pressure sort of gets bogged down and kind of throws itself back to the west. What about the GFS? GFS comes in, and I mean, if you live, what is it, Yarmouth? I think that's how you pronounce it. If you live in those regions right here, the coastal regions, southwestern coastal regions of Nova Scotia, I think the further you are tucked up against the coast, the higher chance you get of accumulating snow. Same thing, Tuesday evening, here comes the snow. Does not hit Prince Edward Island and Cape Breton region very hard with this setup. But it does hit, areas of sort of southeast Newfoundland pretty good. And then once again, it tosses back in that precipitation into these areas as we get later into next week. So snowfall from the latest Euro in centimeters, not near as bad as it was looking in last night's run. See how much it's changed? What was it going for, like 80 to 100 centimeters of snow in Cape Breton Island and in last night's Euro? Not as much now, but it still dumps a lot of snow in these areas. I mean, Nova Scotia, 15 to 25 centimeters of snow. Once you get to Cape Breton Island, more. And Newfoundland, depending on where you are, over a foot of snow. When you're speaking in inches and feet. A lot of snow is possible in these regions. And then you look at the GFS, you compare it to the GFS, and, it really keeps the worst of it away from land, but accumulating snow still likely. I mean, it dumps a lot out in southeast Newfoundland. So that's an update for you folks. Severe weather chances coming up, guys. I mean, you got a slight risk tomorrow, and this has a 5% risk of a tornado. Remember, I mentioned that yesterday. I think they were going to put a 5% risk in this area. This is for tomorrow. For Sunday, we have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in this brown area right here for our Sunday. So we need to take this serious. Wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. Within 15 miles, within 25 miles in a given location. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then hail threat. There will be a hail threat with this, guys. 15% risk of hail. And then we have a severe weather threat for our Monday for the southeast. Georgia, areas of Alabama, all of pretty much the panhandle of Florida, getting into South Carolina. Marginal risk extending almost all the way up to Charlotte. So severe weather will continue for the foreseeable future. And folks, after this, I'm not going to spend real long on this. What I can tell you is that time frame I'm watching, we know there's going to be a Gulf flow. We know there will be cold air nearby. What's going to happen? Can we get this cold air to kind of sink in with this? I don't know. It's been, I'll be honest, I kind of talked about this at the end of last night's video. There's been some discouraging trends with this pattern change that was looking likely. And it's still a pattern change, but it's so jacked up from the Pacific, and it's hard to explain it without spending 5-10 minutes explaining it. But there's features in the Pacific that are really messing up this pattern really bad. And we do know there's going to be a favorable tracking low pressure, most likely in the Gulf of Mexico. But can we get this cold air in? That's a nice track, and we need this low a little bit further south for the north, for the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. But, you can see some cold air trying to catch up with this, as you can tell, some snow in Kentucky, and this is getting into next weekend. But the cold air just does not move in. Now, it does bring some cold air like later in the run, but, let's be honest, who cares what happens 10 days out? We're struggling enough to figure out 5 days out. And it's the same thing with the GFS. We kind of look at the GFS run and what it looks like. We get into late next week. Here comes that moisture you see bubbling up in Texas. Cold air nearby, but it's just not wanting to kind of dive in. It's struggling to dive in. Low pressure, taking a favorable track for the most part. And it kind of gets in, and it's grinding up against the Carolina coastline, but where's the cold air? It never catches up with it. So it's still watching, and even the GFS has a ton of cold air up here, but isn't going to come south. It's been a total weird reversal with the pattern. It has, and I'm not saying anything is concrete, anything is set in stone, because we're seeing so much flip-flop action with this. But man, just some weird stuff. It really just kind of solidifies that we struggle with long-range forecasting. We do. And, as we move into this weekend and we look at the Canadian model shows that high-end scenario with the winter weather. The Canadian model says, hey, you bump whatever the Euro and GFS is showing, we're going to give you guys an all-out winter storm for the mid-Atlantic and areas of the upper southeast, and that's what it does. It kind of pushes the cold air on top of this low and throws a winter storm for areas of Virginia, North Carolina, even gets winter weather into South Carolina. So we got a lot to figure out with next week's time frame, a lot. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm not sure if I'm going to get a video out tonight, guys. We'll see what happens, but God bless all y'all. Have a great Saturday, and talk to you soon.